Welcome. I'm Doug Morgan, and you're listening to Uncommon Sense, where we hunt for the truth in the topics you're not supposed to talk about, Christianity and politics. I had two friends growing up that would save every single penny that they made all summer long so they could spend it at the state fair on rides. yeah, every penny they would spend on the rides there. And I was not that kid. I was the kid that would go to the fair so I could debate the communists at their booth. Yeah. I was fascinated how grown men and women could look at such a system and want it in this country. I found them very ignorant of what they were talking about, and it was easy to dismantle any reason that they proposed of why we should be under such a style of government. I also found it very funny and hypocritical when the party eventually dismantled because of a lack of democracy or the democratic process within the party. I mean, true story. I find it just as interesting when there are people who tout the wonderful things of such a system today. But before we go any further, let's make sure that we define a few terms. First of all, socialism. According to the dictionary, it says that socialism is a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. That's the big, 50-cent word type stuff, right? Under communism, here's it's very similar. Here, a political theory derived from Carl Marx, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned. So, in a nutshell, communism is what socialism wants to be when it grows up. I mean, that's how you can put it. I mean, the two are very close to each other. Communism is when everything is pretty much owned by the government, and socialism says that there can be some private ownership of things and businesses, but the government will tell you what to do with those things and businesses. So yeah, you own them, but the regulation is such that you don't get to make your choices with those things. Both are Marxist ideologies that play on class and racial wars, and that's why we see people like the New York mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani, and him not condemning phrases like globalize the intifada, which, of course, meaning the killing of all Jews. And in fact, here is him talking about his goals.
What the purpose is about this entire project, it's not simply to raise class consciousness, but to win socialism. And obviously raising class consciousness is a critical part of that. But making sure that we have candidates that both understand that and are willing to put that forward at every which moment that they have, at every which opportunity that they're given. We have to continue to elect more socialists, and we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of ceasing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other, that we do not meet a moment and only look at what people are ready for, but that we are doing both of these things in tandem, because it is critical for us to both meet people where they're at and to also organize for what is correct and for what is right, and to ensure that over time we can bring people to that issue. The ramifications of victory here is the difference between life and death for so many of our brothers, sisters, and family beyond the binary across this borough of Queens. It's the difference between having cash bail anymore or not. It's the difference between having sex work be decriminalized and not. And with every battle that we fight as socialists, we need to remember what the stakes are and ground ourselves in them and why those stakes are important and critical to us as individuals. What the purpose is about this.
That right there is probably the next mayor of New York City. When he says, the BDS, what he's referring to there is divesting from any kind of investments in anything having to do with Israel. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about decriminalizing sex workers. That means doing away with prostitution. In other words, you legalize prostitution. When he talk about cash bail, he's meaning that everybody gets let out without having to put up bail before the trial. He also wants to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners to the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. From a series of articles from the Daily Wire comes this, says that Mamdani, a far left 33-year-old Muslim who became an American citizen in 2018, detailed his plan in a policy memo that insists, quote, the city's property tax system favors wealthier homeowners in gentrifying neighborhoods. That's according to the campaign document. I mean, that's his own campaign document. Mamdani wants to lower the tax burden for homeowners in lower income neighborhoods while raising the amount paid in the most expensive Brooklyn brownstones. Mamdani's proposal to target whiter neighborhoods is one of the many racial policy objectives, along with city-owned grocery stores. You heard me correctly, city-owned grocery stores, defunding the police, and freezing rent. Yeah, because that's worked in the past. The leftist state assemblyman has drawn the ire of Republicans and moderates across the country. Representative Andy Ogles, a Republican from Tennessee, even called for Mamdani to be stripped of his American citizenship in a letter to the Attorney General Pam Bondi, saying that Democratic Socialists expressed support for foreign terror organizations, a reference to Mamdani's self-professed love for a group of individuals convicted of funneling money to Hamas. Well, he is such an anti-Semite that it shows in everything that he does. Mamdani supported a bill that would fine Jewish groups, get this, at least $1 million for donating to unauthorized, as he put it, charities operating in Israel. So he can tell you where you can send your money when it comes to charities. And if you don't do the right thing, the way according to the way he sees it, he can fine you at least $1 million. Mamdani first introduced his bill known as the Not on Our Dime bill, ending New York funding of Israel Settler Violence Act in 2023 to block donations to to groups that he accused of funding the expulsion and disposition of Palestinians in the occupied territories. The bill is backed by a New York representative, yes, you guessed it, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, who endorsed Mamdani, of course, and has appeared at recent rallies alongside Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Mamdani, a self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist, wrote the legislation to target not-for-profit corporations that engage in unauthorized support of Israeli settlement activity. The legislation would ban Jewish synagogues and charities from donating to groups such as United Hazala and ZAKA, nonprofit groups that specialize in emergency response and treatment of victims of terrorism, according to the Jerusalem Post. The bill would also ban donations to the One Israel Fund, which focuses on the safety and well-being of over 500,000 residents in Judea and Samaria, including providing medical, educational, recreational, preventative security, and all other forms of communal and social welfare, as they put it. The bill defines settlement activity as aids and abets activity by the Israeli armed forces, the government of Israel, or citizen thereof relating to the unlawful transfer of Israel citizens into occupied territory. Yeah, anyway, you get the picture, right? I mean, this guy goes way beyond most people when it comes to anti-Semitism. And in fact, I saw an opinion piece by Moshe Hill, and they wrote that Mamdani, a card-carrying member of the Democratic Socialists of America, seems ready to burn the city to the ground to become king of the ashes. He, on the other hand, is the epitome of an ignorant, spoiled millennial who appears to have read the Wikipedia entry on Karl Marx and never looked back. If he were white, he would assert the identity with a half dozen facial piercings and by dyeing his hair blue. Born in Uganda to Indian parents, Mamdani is a silver spoon socialist who hates capitalism, hates the West, and is pushing policies that will destroy New York City and the surrounding areas. Mamdani's policy platform on his campaign website reads like a sixth grader running for class president who promises free pizza for lunch and unlimited recess for all. I mean, it really does. He wants to freeze rent, build affordable housing. Okay, those two they don't go together. Which is a mutually exclusive proposition. See what I tell you? If landlords cannot make money on their properties, then investment in new properties dies off, of course. If new properties like Class 2 apartment buildings dry up, then a significant portion of the tax revenue to the city disappears, leaving no money for the city to invest in affordable housing. Rent control has failed everywhere it's been tried because people don't leave their apartments. The prices on all other apartments then skyrocket to make up for the shortfalls as a result. Well, Mamdani's he wants to build a department of community safety. Ooh, that sounds interesting. This committee, which is a socialist, this whole thing of community safety. It's a socialist lingo for defunding the police. He wants to pull money from the police budget and give it to social workers who will be ill-equipped to deal with the myriad of problems. So the issues that arise from this are twofold. First, you have fewer police officers. The policemen who are left will then need to use more aggressive tactics to ensure order, and that leads to more confrontations with the community, leading to more unrest and crime, and so on and so forth. Well, second, the New Yorkers are then left with unqualified, unarmed citizens dealing with severe issues in the worst parts of the city. And when they find themselves in over their heads, and they will slow their work down to focus on the few cases they can handle and ignore the rest, leaving mentally unstable people on the streets for the general public to worry about. Well, Mamdani also proposes a network of city-owned grocery stores, as we were just talking about. This plan is straight out of the Communist playbook. In his TikTok video promoting the idea, Mamdani says that grocery stores are too expensive. His proposal will simultaneously increase the overhead cost of grocery stores via property costs, congestion pricing. So, hey, if you go at midnight, hey, maybe things are going to be a little bit cheaper. But if you go when everybody else wants to go, like, when you first get off work, well, you're going to pay a lot more money for it. He wants to increase the delivery costs if you have it delivered. A Green New Deal policy that increases the cost of electricity and maintenance. He will undercut pricing until other independent stores can't compete and will be forced to close, leaving only city-owned grocery stores, of course. And then the stores themselves will either have to skyrocket the prices, have little to no inventory, or be massively supersized by taxpayer dollars, subsidized, by taxpayer dollars, creating another redistribution scheme. I mean, it just makes no sense. Okay, this stuff, it fails everywhere it's tried. His proposal on childcare, well, of course, free childcare, right? Get the kids early and keep them forever. That's the socialist motto. Once again, no plans on how to pay for this, but hey, we're just giving away free hot lunches, right? Mamdani also wants free busing around the city, which brings in apparently $1.2 billion in revenue for the MTA. Other saner people would actually talk about, prosecuting fare evasion, which costs 350 to 700 million per year and forces the rest of the public to pick up the monetary slack. But Mamdani actually wants to reward the criminals and say that everyone gets free busing. Of course, he also claims that this means that buses will be safer and cleaner to ride and everyone will love them. When in reality, this means that they will become mobile homeless shelters and, overcrowded nightmares. The gaslighting by Mamdani is shockingly brazen. Recently, he touted his free busing proposal while riding the Staten Island ferry. He claimed on social media that since the ferry is free, why can't busing be free? Either he doesn't know that the ferry costs well over $100 million per year to operate, while the bus system costs over $4 billion per year, or is assuming that this, that his audience is just too dumb to put it that, to literally put that together. Either way, it doesn't matter to Mamdani, because to a socialist, everything can be paid for just because they say it can. How will Mamdani pay for all of his proposals? Yeah, you guessed it. He will raise taxes. All of these proposals come directly from Mamdani's campaign website and should concern everybody responsible. Any responsible New Yorker anyway. It's his opinion and views on Israel and the Jews, however, that should cause them even more concern. His defenders will, of course, claim that he doesn't hate Jews, and anti-Zionist leftist Jews from If Not Now and Jewish Voice for Peace will line up around the block to take pictures with him to prove that he's not an anti-Semite, but that's all a sham. Mamdani was the sponsor of the Not on Our Dime Act in Albany. One of the first bills he proposed would empower the Attorney General to shut down any nonprofit that includes any synagogue that gave charity to any entity in the occupied Palestinian territories. We just talked about that. Mamdani also does not believe Israel should exist as a Jewish state. So the standard that applies to the 27 Muslim and 13 Christian or 2 Buddhist countries does not apply to the only Jewish state, of course. Well, during a recent Democratic mayoral debate, when asked specifically if Israel should exist as a Jewish state, this is what he replied with. He said, quote, "I believe Israel can exist as a state with equal rights." His statement ignores the fact that Israel offers equal rights to all of its citizens, that Arabs serve in the Israeli government, on courts, and any other setting that they wish to. In fact, Israel has far more equality than Mamdani's birth country of Uganda. So Mamdani wants to shut down every Jewish nonprofit or synagogue, thinks the Jewish state should be eradicated, and we're supposed to believe he doesn't hate Jews? I mean, this couldn't come at a more important time, too. Recently, Molotov cocktails were thrown at Jews in Boulder, Colorado, for the crime of wanting to free Jewish hostages, of course. Several weeks ago, of course, the 2 young people were shot in Washington, D.C. for the crime of attending an Israeli event. Students in New York City can't get to classes. The streets have been blocked and lives have been ruined. Will this mayoral hopeful have an interest in directing what remains of this police force to protect the Jews who live in his city, or will he publish a trite statement on social media and turn a blind eye? Now we're seeing riots in LA and around the country as deranged leftists take on ICE agents, and the president advocated for the National Guard to prevent a return to the summer of 2020. Will Mamdani stoke the same fires as Democrats in California have, calling them a mostly peaceful protests while the fires burn, of course? Or will he throw fuel on those fires? This election could be a breaking point for New York City. Everything that can be done to prevent Mamdani from winning must be done right now. The future of New York is in the hands of the voters. If they sit this one out, they only have themselves to blame. And Mamdani is not the front runner for New York mayor, despite his views. He is the front runner for New York mayor because of his views. And if they elect him, I hope that they get what they voted for, and they, as they say, they get it good and hard, because we do get what we vote for, and this looks like what they're going to receive. Another opinion piece by G. Van Fleet I thought was extremely good here. And they say that communism may sound appealing to those who have lived under it, who have never lived under it. It promises fairness, equality, and justice. But behind the slogans lies a brutal reality: misery, scarcity, and repression. I know this because I lived it, they say. Zohran Mamdani, who just won the Democratic primary for the New York City mayor, is not merely another progressive. He is a full-fledged communist, as revealed in a recently resurfaced video where he uses unmistakably Marxist language to outline his vision for the city. This is his plan: seizing the means of production. I mean, you heard it. I played the clip. Seizing means of production. What does that mean? That means that it's going to be government controlled. Whatever comes out of factories and that type of, those factories are going to be government controlled. Seizing the means of production. Elevating class consciousness. I mean, that's pitting one class against another. Very Marxist. Government controlled housing. State-run grocery stores. So you see, you have the government-controlled means of production on one end, and then on the retail end, you have the state-run grocery stores, and the redistribution of wealth and dignity, as he puts it. To many, this may sound like abstract political theory, but to me, he says, it's the nightmare I've lived through in Mao's China. Take Mamdani's call to seize the means of production. Most Americans have no idea what that really means. It means the government takes ownership of everything: businesses, factories, land, resources, and capital. It means that no one owns anything. Not their homes, not their labor, not even their lives. In Mao's China, we were stripped of property and turned into mere tools of the state. Over time, we became the property of the Communist Party itself. It didn't just own the means of production, it owned us. Mamdani talks about redistributing wealth, a notion that may sound noble, but in practice leads to ruin. Socialism excels in redistribution, but utterly fails at the creating of wealth. In Mao's China, the state eventually ran out of resources to distribute, and we were all made equally poor. Yet we were taught to celebrate that poverty because wealth was portrayed as evil and exploitative. Just as Mamdani now claims there should be no millionaires or billionaires in America. But poverty was never equal. The party elites were never hungry and never deprived. They lived in comfort while the rest of the the rest of us endured scarcity and fear. That's what communist equality truly means. Enforced misery for the many, privilege for the few. Mamdani grew up enjoying the comfort made possible by the American dream. Now he seeks to dismantle that very dream, not just for New Yorkers, but for all Americans. He also speaks of redistributing dignity, as if dignity is something the government can grant or withhold. This is a core communist belief. In America, we understand that dignity does not come from the state. It is inherent and endowed by our Creator, as affirmed in the Declaration of Independence. Just as there is no dignity in slavery, there is none under communism. In Mao's China, we were constantly told to be grateful to the party for every crumb we received. We were not seen as individuals with rights, but as human resources, tools to be exploited by the state. From a very young age, we were taught that each of us was just a tiny screw, and that true happiness came from accepting whatever role the party assigned us in the big socialist machine. It is hard to speak of dignity under communism when its very goal is to erase individuality. In Mao's China, housing was granted by the state. My family, he says, of 5, was assigned 1.5 small rooms. We shared a kitchen and toilet with multiple other families, and we were the lucky ones. Most families had no plumbing at all. There was no privacy. There was no choice. That is what government-run housing looks like, not the idealized version of Mamdani's promises, but a system in which the state decides what you deserve and where you live. Mamdani's plan for government-run grocery cooperatives closely mirrors what I experienced under communism. In Mao's China, food distribution was centralized and strictly rationed. The result was chronic scarcity. Shelves were often bare, and long lines were a part of daily life. When the state controls the food supply, it controls people. Hunger becomes a tool of obedience, and survival depends on loyalty to the regime. What alarms me most is not just how radical a communist Mamdani is, but that New York City voters chose communism knowingly or unknowingly. The voting results show that the majority of his supporters are educated white liberals. They have been indoctrinated by the American education system to reject capitalism and view socialism as compassionate, a cure for all the problems in their city. My message to them is simple. While capitalism does not guarantee wealth for everyone, socialism guarantees poverty for all, except those in power, of course. In 2024, the American people rejected communism by electing President Donald Trump. But the fight is far from over. Communism, disguised as wokeism, continues to take root, especially in New York. One of the most prominent socialists from New York City is Congressman AOC. And in 2022, self-proclaimed socialist Kristen Gonzalez won the state Senate seat in District 59. In her victory speech, she declared, quote, "Today we really proved that socialism wins. We are not going anywhere, and we will not stop until we see a socialist slate across the country," unquote. And 3 years later, we see a socialist poised to become the mayor of the greatest capitalist city in the world. More than 30 years ago, he says. I escaped communism by coming to America. I came here for freedom, the very freedom Mamdani now seeks to dismantle. The danger of communism is not that it comes all at once, but that it creeps in gradually, wrapped up in words like justice and equity. I've seen where that road leads, and I'm here to say, don't go down it. And let my experience serve as your warning. Communism always promises paradise, but it always delivers misery. I thought that was very good, and I think they're so right on, and it's because of their experience with communism, and they see exactly what's happening here, and so many are ignorant to it, and to see this guy on the verge of becoming mayor there in New York City is troubling to many that have lived through a communist regime. I would like to hear your thoughts on it. You can always send those this way by going to our website, uncommonsensepodcast.com. You can go online and get there by typing that in, or you can also go onto our YouTube page. We'd love to have you like and to share, subscribe. It always helps us out, and thank you for listening. This podcast is a production of Morganite Communications.